And so I request that this be continued one more time. And so I can get those documents to him. He can familiarize himself with the process. And then we can go from there.
Any objection, Mr. Enfinger, to a continuance? I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I apologize. No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, so we'll move this to the next calendar, which I think is May
25th.
May 25th. So
Thank you, Your Honor.
He's got plenty of time to familiarize himself with WebEx. So,
okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, that concludes the hearing for this morning. Thank you, Mr. Wells. All right, let's go. The next two cases are Mr. Zell's cases. Frankie Gephardt and Ryan Edwards have been continued. Devonta Williams was continued, item 7. And which brings us to Nicholas Lopez versus Brian Adams. Looks like a knife. It's all right.
Your Honor, did you say Devonta Williams is continued?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's go to Nicholas Lopez versus Brian Adams. All right, are you Mr. Adams? All right, good morning. Apparently your audio is muted, so if you could unmute your audio or have someone there do it.
It's the little round device in front of you, Mr. Lopez. If you click that button that's red, you should unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
How are you? All right, so this is case number 17R077. Actually, it's 21 HC 43. This number showed up on pleading. Mr. Lopez, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir, I am.
And Mr. Enfinger's here for the respondent. Sir, are you ready to proceed as well?
Yes, Your Honor. We're limited ready based on the grounds raised.
Okay. Mr. Lopez, do you have any witnesses that you intend to call?
Yes, sir, I subpoenaed my wife, Diana Rodriguez Lopez. I subpoenaed Miss Erica Austin of the Grady County, the Southwest Circuit Public Defender's Office. And I subpoenaed my attorney, ex-attorney, Mr. Miller, which resides in Fort Myers, Florida. And I've had really a hard time getting him served. They returned the subpoena, lost the first check. Now my wife sent the second check and I returned them because they wanted a copy of the original order, Your Honor. So I had to, and here we don't got copies in here. So I had to send them the original. So it's a tight squeeze with Mr. Miller. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get him in here today.
Right.
Is he present?
He is not.
Is Miss Lopez and Miss Austin present?
Yes, both of those individuals have logged in. They're in the waiting area and they're available.
They are logged in, both of them?
Yes.
Okay, the situation with Mr. Miller, I wrote a whole deposition that I wanted to question him because the majority, a good portion of my enumerations of error, Your Honor, fall upon Mr. Miller's ineffective assistance counsels on various points, imperative points, okay? And the way that I looked at it, it was a cumulative progression in the way that he handled a lot of the extenuating circumstances that could have been raised to mount a substantial defense in my behalf. You know, points in regards to the judge's ex parte communications with my jury before they even took the stand. You have situations with he didn't cross-examine the ballistics expert in my case, which could have substantiated the trajectories of spent shells. She could have substantiated, Dr. Kraft, a pathologist, stating that the term ricochet doesn't exist. You know, all of what I'm pointing to in this regard is, also with my wife, would be intent. Okay, that the defendant, Mr. Nicholas Lopez, at the beginning of that day on Memorial Day weekend, there was no intent to commit murder, Your Honor. Okay, the only reason I was out in that front yard, it was to take down a compressor that I had put in the back of the truck. So, Mr. Miller, I want to question him on various points, very important points, that he failed to object or even preserve for the record to hold the state to any level of accountability, you know? I
Okay.
mean, I had 4 jurors
All right, Mr.
return from
Enfinger,
work.
this is opening remarks. I didn't ask for you to try the case, okay? Mr. Enfinger, do you have any you wish to call?
Sir?
No witnesses, Your Honor, but I could give a little bit of background in this case if it would help the court.
If you would, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. So this is a petition challenging petitioner's 2018 Grady County jury trial convictions for malice murder and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. These convictions were affirmed on direct appeal in Lopez versus State, 310 Georgia 529, and that came out in 2020. Mr. Lopez represented himself pro se on appeal, and so the respondent's position is that any of the claims that are now raised in the petition that were not raised on appeal are procedurally defaulted for his failure to raise them on appeal.
All right, Mr. Lopez, call your first witness.
Okay, first and foremost, I would like to, well, I'll start with Ms. Erica Austin in regards to these points that I'm going to raise now are constitutional and procedural, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Austin, are you there?
Yes,
All right, I think I heard you, Ms. Austin. If you could activate your audio. There you are. Good morning.
good morning.
All right, if you would raise your right hand this morning, you swear affirm testimony you're about to give to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes,
All right, Mr. Lopez, you may ask questions.
Okay, how you doing this morning, Ms. Austin?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. In regards to the more, okay, you were assigned to represent me as what, second chair? Were you second chair or lead counsel during these proceedings that Mr. Lopez had his, that I had my trial?
I was not assigned to represent you. That was Mr. Miller. I was there during the trial, but I was not your attorney of record.
That's correct, you were there, okay. Now, during the course of the proceedings, okay, that Mr. Curtis Washington took the stand, and Mr. Miller was, or the state, Mr. Atwell was questioning him, okay? On 3 or 4 different occasions, okay, Mr. Curtis Washington was addressing the defendant, Nicholas Lopez, from secondhand commentary from a Michael Passmore. Supposedly, he was I guess that they had put him out there as a landlord out at this place. And he kept referring to Nicholas Lopez as a dangerous man. He repeated this over and over and over again. And even you on occasion, did you not you were about to raise your hand and object for his failure until you and him made eye contact in order for him to object to that. Do you remember that?
I don't remember, since I was not trial counsel. I have not reviewed the transcript. I don't have, it's
Okay, but
been years.
You were sitting right there next to me, okay? And Mr. Miller was at the end of the table. You don't remember Mr. Curtis Washington calling me a dangerous man because he heard it from a Michael Passmore? Over and over again, he kept stating it to the jury.
I vaguely remember him saying that. What I don't remember is whether or not there was an objection. I haven't been able to review anything. I wasn't.
All right, but you
trial
do
counsel.
acknowledge that he kept saying it, because I remember you got kind of uptight behind it, until finally, Your Honor, after the 3rd time of calling me a dangerous man, from a hearsay comments from a Michael Passmore, he finally objected on the third time.
Okay.
That's all I just,
Just kind of a housekeeping thing, Mr. Lopez, right now you can ask questions. I don't need any commentary. I don't need you to explain the
Yeah.
answer.
okay, I got you.
The witness needs to respond. All right.
Okay, now, Miss Eric Austin, when I was on the stand testifying, okay, and, me and Mr. Miller were having a hard time back and forth. We were doing more arguing back and forth, you know, while I was testifying on the stand, okay? And at one point, Judge Chasen said, okay, that we could, he gave us a timeout to go into the library. Do you remember that?
I
During my
don't.
testimony, when he stopped the
don't re-
proceedings?
I
You
don't
don't remember
remember.
the proceedings being stopped and me, you, and the appellate attorney going into the library during my,
Off of the top of my head, I do not remember. It's been a very long time.
yeah. Well, that's, the point is, Your Honor, that during my testimony.
Objection, Your Honor.
Again, Mr. Lopez, I don't need your explanation of
Okay.
the answer.
Okay, so you don't remember me firing you and Mr. Miller at any point during that trial? You don't remember me looking at Miller and telling him that you're fired, Mr. Miller? And him saying, well, the judge ain't gonna let you do that. You don't remember that?
Do not remember. I haven't had an opportunity to look at stuff because I wasn't the trial counsel. I just don't remember.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Austin, after those proceedings, when Mr. Lopez was testifying, did you return back to the courtroom? Do you remember returning back to the courtroom?
I'm sure I stayed throughout the trial.
No, you did not, ma'am. You left.
Okay. Okay.
When I fired you in the law library, along with Mr. Miller, you left. You never came back into the courtroom, Ms. Austin.
Well, I wasn't
And,
your trial counsel, so.
Exactly. You were sitting there second chair on the phone the whole time. But
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Lopez is testifying.
Don't argue with the witness. You can ask her questions, but I'm not gonna let you argue with her.
Well, Your Honor, she doesn't seem to remember anything. She doesn't remember me and Mr. Miller arguing on the stand while I was testifying.
Mr. Lopez, if you have questions you want to ask, I don't need you to explain to me what's going on.
Okay, all righty. Okay, Ms. Austin. So do you think at the time that you were there during the proceedings, okay, do you think that Mr. Miller was providing effective assistance of counsel to the defendant? And do you remember, I mean, do you have an opinion on that?
Yes.
Yes, meaning? Elaborate, please.
That I think he provided effective assistance.
Okay, so you just sat here a minute ago and you just told us all sitting here that you don't remember anything because you don't have the record. But yet you're sitting here now telling me in front of Your Honor and Mr. Ingfield, sir, that you do remember him providing effective counsel.
Overall,
You remember
yes.
effective counsel, but you don't remember nothing that went on.
I don't remember specifics, but overall, given what generally the trial was about, I think that he provided effective assistance.
Okay, so you can vouch for that, but you can't vouch, a minute ago, you stated
Your
that
Honor.
you couldn't
Yeah.
remember.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any other questions for this witness? Mr.
Your Honor,
Lopez?
I thought, I think I basically established that, I don't know, she remembers, she remembers his effectiveness, but she doesn't, a minute ago, she testified that she didn't remember, she couldn't vouch because she didn't have the record.
I do not need you to describe the testimony for me.
Yes, sir.
I'm here contemporaneously with you, and I'll draw
Yep.
my own conclusions. Do you have any other questions for this witness?
I understand, Your Honor, and I have no more questions for her.
All right, thank you, Ms. Austin.
Can I be excused?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Austin.
Thank
All
you.
right, call your next witness.
Right now, Your Honor, I would like to call Mrs. Diana Lopez, please.
All right, Diana Lopez. All right, Ms. Lopez, are you there?
Ms. Lopez, can you hear us? Ms. Lopez?
Ms. Lopez, are you there?
It's likely her connection.
Yeah. I think she's logged in, but she's got a really bad connection and we're not able to hear her at all.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now, can you activate your video, man?
What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh,
And I,
they can't see me.
Yes, there's some buttons at the bottom, and one says unmute, mute, and another one says start video. There you go.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yeah,
Okay.
There we go.
Good morning.
you look like a
Morning.
good guy. You're all set up. All right, raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You can take your hand down, Mr. Lopez. You may ask Ms. Lopez questions at this time.
Good morning, Ms. Lopez.
Good morning.
Okay, what I'm gonna establish here, Mrs. Lopez, is, when the trial started for myself, okay? You showed up, you were there, you showed up at the courthouse.
Yes.
Did you hear that, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, you showed up, I'm gonna start with the court, well, I'm gonna start with the court, then I'll go back to the other things. Okay, now, when you showed up at the court, okay, what was your intention when you showed up at the defendant's first day of trial? What were you there for?
I was there to testify.
That's exactly right, Your Honor. Okay, you were there to testify, okay? At some point, Mr. Miller went from behind the defense table where the defendant was sitting and came and talked to you. Can you share with the court exactly what the conversation is that you had with Mr. Miller?
Yes, he came to me and he told me that Nick does not want you to testify. I said,
Okay.
are you sure? He says, yes, he does not want you to testify.
Okay,
I told
All
him
right.
that's what I'm here for.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Okay, so Mr. Miller came, he told you that Mr. Lopez didn't want you to testify. Okay, we're gonna go back now to the date of May the 26th, 2017, okay, the day of the incident, okay? Now, Mr. Lopez was home at the house and you were at work. When you came home from work, your husband was there at the house,
Yes.
okay? You stated for the record, what was Mr. Lopez doing when you got home?
All right,
He-
Mr. Lopez, let me intervene here. This is not an opportunity for you to retry your case. All right,
Okay,
this is not another bite at the apple of trial. This is an opportunity for you to present any witnesses or any evidence that support your constitutional challenges that
Right.
you've raised in the petition, but we're not gonna retry your entire case.
Okay, yes, Your Honor. Okay, Mrs. Lopez, okay, the state has stated, Mr. Atwell has stated to the state in the various testimonies here on record, and he told the jury that Mr. Lopez was eating away at him, something was eating away at him, when the law, you remember Deputy Starling coming to the house because Mr. Lopez had words with the gentleman across the street? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, after the deputy left and we went back into the house, okay? Do you remember Mr. Lopez's attitude, the way he was acting?
Everything was fine. It was Memorial Day weekend. We were going to cook hamburgers, or we did cook hamburgers.
Okay. What, moments before exiting the residence, okay, did you remember Mr. Lopez in any kind of anger or like an intent to commit murder when he walked outside to take the compressor out of the back of the truck?
No, not at all. Everything was
Ms. Lopez,
fine.
do you feel that a jury would have been, would you have testified to that in open court to a jury?
Absolutely, yes, because that's what happened. Everything was fine that weekend.
Exactly. Okay, when Mr. Lopez went outside, what was Mr. Lopez's intent when he walked outside to go to his truck? What was he going out there for?
Objection, Your Honor. I think that calls for speculation.
I'll sustain the objection. I'm not gonna allow her to testify as to what your intent was.
Okay, okay, so in your opinion, Mrs. Lopez, when Mr. Lopez walked out of the house, okay, did you see him holding a weapon in his hand?
Absolutely not, no,
So when he walked out of the house, there was no weapon in his hand, okay?
No.
And when he walked out of the house, you're stating that he was basically enjoying his Memorial Day weekend,
yes.
okay? Now, did you witness anything that happened when he walked out of the house?
No, I stayed in the house in the back room watching TV. No, I wasn't
Yes,
outside
ma'am.
at all.
Okay. All right, now, when you said that you heard how many, you said that you heard what sounded like firecrackers?
Yes, I didn't think anything of it because it was the beginning of the Memorial Day weekend.
Exactly. How many did you hear?
I heard about 2 or 3.
Okay. Now, when Mr. Lopez came back into the house, what did he say to you?
He said,
She's got to say a cuss word, Your Honor.
I'm a big boy.
Go ahead, yeah.
he said, I fucked up.
Okay, Mr. Lopez walked back in the house and said he fucked up, okay? And after that, what did Mr. Lopez do?
He left.
Okay, so do you think that when Mr. Lopez walked out of the house before any of this happened, okay? Before he went out into the yard, did you see did he have, in your honest opinion, do you think he had any intent to commit a crime or murder anybody or hurt anybody in the state of mind and in the intimacy that y'all were sharing in your home? When he exited the residence, was he something eating away at him? Did he look like he was angry or mad or anything like that?
No, not at all. Everything was fine.
Okay.
We were having a good time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Your Honor, basically what I'm trying to establish here is that the last person that seen Mr. Lopez when he walked out of the residence moments before the crime, okay, supposed crime happened. This is the last person.
Again, I don't need you to explain what the witness's testimony.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I get a little bit, I'm defending myself here, so it's a little hard to control that, okay?
I understand.
So basically, what I'm trying to do, Your Honor, is establishing his intent. Okay, from the testimony of my wife stating that when I walked out of the residence, okay, that there was no intent to hurt anybody. Law enforcement had been out there earlier in the day. They said they would handle it, and that was the end of that. And Mrs. Lopez, wasn't those the words that were stated by the deputy that let them handle it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so Mr. Miller basically came to the court back there behind Mr. Lopez and told you that Mr. Lopez stated that he didn't want you to testify.
Right. That's exactly what he
Okay.
said.
Now, Your Honor, I'm Mr. Lopez, so I'm gonna state for the record here that the only reason my wife was there, Your Honor, was to testify in front of my 12 jurors in regards to my intent moments before. Nobody could give, obviously, that testimony would have definitely been a factor in regard to how the jury perceived me moments before. Okay, now, Mrs. Lopez, I'm gonna ask you something else, okay? In the front yard, okay, do you remember Mr. Curtis Washington?
Vaguely. Yeah. The
Okay.
people that lived in front of us.
Right, to the right-hand side a little bit.
Yes, in the
Okay.
corner.
Now, in the front yard of our residence, on that specific corner, directly in front of Mr. Washington's home, okay, what did Mr. Lopez have right there? What was there? At that right
We had a
front-hand corner?
carport. We had a carport and we had the boat and our Jeep in there. That's what
Okay,
was
Your
always
Honor,
there.
what I'm stating here, Your Honor, that directly the visual.
All right, I don't need you to summarize what the witness
sorry.
just said.
Okay, so what you're stating, Mrs. Lopez, is there was a 30 by 60 carport with a Jeep and a boat there in the front yard in between there, Mr. Curtis Washington's residence and ours.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's, okay, let me see what else. Basically, Your Honor, that's the testimony that I had from Mrs. Lopez, that she was there to testify on my behalf in order to establish what kind of intent that I had versus the testimony of Mr. Curtis Washington, basically that, you know, that I went over there and Mr. Atwell's, I can, if you give me time, I can go dig through my records and show you his closing arguments and testimony that he gave to the jury in regards to speculating, in regards to what I was feeling and how I was acting the day that I walked out of the residence in order to.
Before we get to that, Mr. Enfinger, do you have any questions on cross-examination?
I do not, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Do you have any other witnesses you wish to call, Mr. Lopez?
Well, I want to call Mr. Miller, but is he available? Did he ever log in?
No.
Okay, now, Mrs. Lopez, I want to ask you one last question here. Did you forward monies to the Lee County Sheriff's Department in order to pay for the subpoenas for Mr. Miller's presence here today?
Yes, I did. In fact, I sent two. The first one, they told me it wasn't enough and they lost the money order. So I had to resend another one for more money. In fact, they called me this morning saying they just received it, so they were unable to serve Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mrs. Lopez. Well, Your Honor,
Here's,
I
all right,
did everything.
Mr.
I'm
Lopez,
sorry.
hold on just a second. Here's what I'm going to suggest.
Yes.
I want to give you the opportunity to present all of the witnesses that you feel can testify to the issues that you've raised in your petition.
Yes, sir.
We've had two witnesses testify. I'm willing to continue this. I've got another habeas calendar on May the 25th.
That's right.
I can continue this to May the 25th. That gives you ample opportunity to subpoena trial counsel, and I'll consider his testimony at that time. We've already got the witness testimony that we've accomplished this morning, and then we conclude the matter on the 25th. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, it is, Your Honor. That's more than fair, sir. I appreciate that, sir.
You have any
I-
objection?
Your Honor, I would just ask that we could tender our exhibits. That way, in case Mr. Lopez decides he doesn't want Mr. Miller's testimony, we don't need to bring the case back before the court for a hearing.
And Mr. Lopez, just so you understand, and I'm sure you would, but what Mr. Enfinger has asked is that we go ahead and allow him to tender the exhibits from your record. You've made constitutional challenges. I've got to review the record to see if there's merit to these challenges. The record will consist of all documents filed in the clerk's office in the county of your conviction, a transcript of each hearing, including the trial transcript, and that way I can review the record and see if there's merit to the claims that you've raised. All right.
Yes, sir.
With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Enfinger to go ahead and submit the exhibits.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's see. Okay, Respondent's Exhibit 1 is the clerk's record from the underlying criminal case.
Any objection, Mr. Lopez?
Okay. Notice of appeal. Date of sentence. Not to that, Your Honor. That's my document. You can proceed there.
All right, so one's admitted.
Respondent's Exhibit 2 is Volume 1 of the jury trial transcript.
Any objection to volume 2? Or to
The reason I'm going to object to one point in regards to the jury dial on December the 4th, 2017 is right there in the index. Okay, you see Mr. Curtis Washington's name written twice, Your Honor? Okay, right there. Now that second phrase, the second part where it says Curtis Washington, page 133, that is Deputy Nixon. They have made a clerical error on that document stating Mr. Curtis Washington twice, when in fact he was excused after the first, unheard of. The main witness for the state being excused on the first part. But that on page 133 is the commencement of Mr. Nixon's testimony, not Curtis Washington. And that is one of the defense's witnesses right there, Your Honor, on our 25th. Mr. Kevin Nixon, sir. I'd like to admit his testimony in full, sir. I just wanted to make sure because the transcript says Curtis Washington twice and it's faulty. As shown right here on the screen.
If I could briefly respond, Your Honor, I would agree that that does appear to be a typographical error in the index, but in the actual body of the transcript, I think it accurately reflects that it's Mr. Nixon that testified on page 133.
Okay, all right, and now we'll have the benefit of this acknowledgement on the record in this habeas proceeding, so when we're reviewing the record, we'll be aware of that clerical.
Yes, sir.
So thank you for bringing that to our attention. So subject to
Yeah.
that, any other objection, Mr. Lopez?
None whatsoever, Your Honor. I'd like the 4th and the 5th of December transcript be submitted for the record, sir.
Respondents 3 is that December 5th jury trial transcript that Mr. Nixon just referenced, or excuse me, Mr. Lopez.
All right,
In
Mr.
full,
Lopez.
sir. Be admitted in full, sir. None whatsoever.
All right, submitted.
Respondents Exhibit 4 is the exhibits that were admitted at trial. It's volume 3 of the jury trial transcript.
Okay, I'm gonna object on the ground, the only reason because part of my argument, Your Honor, is the fact that there was no evidentiary hearing to any of these exhibits. I mean, this man went up there and with no objection whatsoever, ran piecemeal down through 28 exhibits being admitted without me ever reviewing a single photograph. I wasn't even given the opportunity. That overhead picture right there, when I took the stand, I asked for it so I could point to the jury. And they didn't give me the opportunity. This is the first time I'm looking at these pictures. I've never seen them. This is literally the first time that I'm looking at these pictures, Your Honor.
Right. Your response?
But, I mean, and that's one of my arguments, one of my constitutional and procedural arguments on my documentation is that I never had a right to review these and also, object to some of their admittance for the jury to see. See, I don't know what's on those pictures, so I can't sit here and say, yeah, I have no objection to them. I have to object because I've never seen them, unless you want to show them to me. I mean, I'm being perfectly honest, Your Honor. I've never seen any of these pictures before. I've got,
Mr. Lopez, I got it. Mr. Enfinger, do you have any response?
Yes, Your Honor, a two-part response. First, since we're tendering and intending to admit these at this hearing, I have no problem whatsoever scrolling through it and showing Mr. Lopez what the body of it contains. But in terms of its admissibility, I think that these were all legally admitted at Mr. Lopez's trial, and as far as I know, there's no indication that they weren't included in discovery or anything like that. So we would submit that on that basis they're admissible in this hearing.
All right, your objection is noted for the record. It's overruled. R4 is admitted.
yes, sir.
Respondents Exhibit 5 is the transcript from the Ferretta hearing.
Okay.
Any objection to R5?
I have, no, but the only objection that I would have to the whole proceedings of the motion for a new trial is that I kept requesting, Your Honor, representation.
Mr. Lopez, that's not what this is. This is a transcript of the Ferretta hearing, which is where the judge goes through a series of questions with you to advise you that it's not wise to represent yourself, and you are entitled to an attorney. So any objection to R5?
Yeah, you can, I object to it being, yeah, I have an objection for the record.
All right, your objection is noted. It's overruled. R5 is admitted.
Respondents Exhibit 6 is the transcript from the motion for new trial hearing.
All right, any
No
objection?
objection, Your Honor. No objection, Your Honor.
R6 is admitted.
Respondents Exhibit 7 is the brief of appellant to the Supreme Court.
All right, is that
No
what-
objection, Your Honor.
All right, R7 is
No.
admitted.
Respondents 8 is the brief of appellee from the District Attorney's Office.
Any objection to R8?
No objection, Your Honor,
R8 is
for the
admitted.
record.
Respondents 9 is the brief of appellee from the Attorney General's Office.
Any objection to R9?
No objection, no
R9
objection, Your Honor.
And then finally, Respondents Exhibit 10 is the reply brief from the appellant.
Any objection?
Can you scroll down a little bit on that, please, sir? Okay, there's no objection there, Your Honor.
All right, so that's admitted.
That concludes all the exhibits that I have, Your Honor.
So R1 through 10 have been admitted. So the balance of the hearing is going to be continued until May the 25th.
That's right.
Okay, so to give, out of an abundance of caution, to give Mr. Lopez ample opportunity to secure the witness, I understand it's trial counsel, to come in and testify. And now that we've got all of the records after that testimony is obtained, we can proceed and all that in order. All right, that concludes the hearing for today. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience, Your Honor. Mr. Enfinger, sir? Mr. Lopez?
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor, for your patience here with me.
Can I shut it down, Your Honor?
Sorry.
Can I shut it down?
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, for showing up.
Welcome.